right. Good afternoon, everyone. How are you all doing? I hope everyone's had their lunch, and I hope that we're ready to run our webinar. And our topic for today, so Talentview is hosting what we call Webinar Wednesdays. And our topic for today is developing leaders who thrive amidst disruption. So I just want to say hi to a few of the people that have come in that we're quite familiar with. We've seen in meetings, we've seen in our other sessions. So hello to everyone from the team. Crystal, Nick, Salim is here. Hello to Cairo. Nice to see you guys again. And hello to everyone that's joining us also for the first time. So I want to start off by just sharing with you what you see on your screen or your panel. We've placed on the upper right a resource list for you. So everything we're discussing for this entire webinar, whatever resources that we're sharing, you can also download these resources in our resource list. On the right side as well is feedback. So anytime you'd like to start rating us, just tell us how to improve. Usually this will come after the session, and just letting you know that for anyone who gives feedback to us, I will be giving a copy of my book, Rethink Recruitment, and send that to you once this lockdown is over. So please stay tuned for that, and please make sure to send us your feedback so that we know how you guys thought of the presentations. All right, and then on the bottom part of your panel, you'll see a Q&A portion. So if you've got any questions, we've got our production team on the back end ready and waiting for any of your questions. And if there's any question that you have that we feel would benefit the rest of our audience for this panel today, we will post that up and I'll answer that for everyone too. And then, of course, in the center, this is where we'll be sharing all our slides, our presentations, case studies, frameworks that you can use. Please be assured that whatever slides we're presenting today, this will go out to you as well. So you'll have a full copy of everything we've been sharing. Okay, so just a quick introduction of myself and of Talentview. Just very quickly, so my name is Ange Vera. I'm the CEO of Talentview, and Talentview has been helping organizations across the region. We are present in 3 countries right now, Philippines, Malaysia, and Vietnam. And I've been in HR for about 15 years already, going the rounds of talent acquisition, learning and development, OD, HR tech, performance management, and compensation benefits. And I'm also an author of the book that we are giving away for our feedback session, which is called Rethink Recruitment. So we've got a good mix of participants today, so I hope you stay with us and bear with us as we go through a webinar, because a lot of us are having to adjust to the lockdown, through the crisis. And we thought, let's be productive. Let's share what we can and help our HR community. So welcome to the webinar again, and thank you for joining us. So quick introduction of Talentview. For those that know, we are all about employer branding. So we're really helping organizations build 3 core areas: strategy, design, and technology. So strategy, in what ways can you get noticed or at least build your talent attraction pipeline? In what ways can you be loved by your very own employees? And of course, design. How do you make your program more appealing? How do you make everything more structured so that your employees, your team members can understand how it benefits them as well? So designing of programs and designing of ways to be more attractive as an employer. And the third piece is, of course, technology. So you're probably quite familiar with some of the technologies that are there. We'll be sharing a few with you that will be relevant to our topic. And across the region, we've worked with more than 200 customers, both in the multinational corporation side, as well as large local conglomerates. So just continuing to build programs for them and making sure that their employer brand stays intact and strong, even in challenging and tough times. So before we start, I'd like to run a poll by you. Just very quickly answer this question: who among you have a structured leadership program? And just 3 options: either you have it complete, or you have it but you're still refining and still trying to build that out. And third is you're exploring it's not something you currently have at the moment. So I'll give a minute for all of you to pick up this survey, and we'll look at the results. All right, so hopefully everyone has submitted. Let's now move on to the next slide and see where you guys are. All right, wow, super interesting results for this group. 100%, we have one, but we need to further refine it. I hear you. We are going to focus on that. And our agenda for this webinar for the next 30 minutes is talking about 3 key things. Number 1 is the process for developing your leadership pipeline and hopefully enhancing it. The second is we'll be sharing case studies, and we'll be sharing a typical checklist of how you can build your very own leadership pipeline. And the third would be technologies that you can use so that even amidst this time, everyone is working from home, or most of us are working from home, you still can refine and build further on your current leadership program. All right, so let's get started. I want to jump in and start with a quote from John Maxwell, and where he says, "A leader who produces other leaders multiplies their influences." So we know this. We know that leadership is crucial. We know that it makes a difference in organizations. Yet when we look at our very own companies, we know that there's a lot to be improved, that a lot of companies out there still are looking to refine or improve or even develop or start their own leadership program. So whatever we're sharing with you here, the framework and methodology we're using, is something that we've tried and tested and established with a lot of the organizations we work with. So please feel free to take what you can get. Some of the things, because you're already at the, I would say, level 2 refining stage, some of the things you're already doing, and some maybe you're just starting. So please feel free to pick up whatever you think will be helpful to your very own programs. All right. So 3 areas where we want to kick off our leadership pipeline builder. It's easy to remember. It's align, assess, and accelerate. We have to answer very specific questions. The very first one is, what does the organization need? When we look at our talent, when we look at the direction of the company, what does the company need for us to move to our strategy 3 to 5 years from now? And then we need to take a look also and ask, what am I great at? What are our talents great at? What are their skills? Where are the areas that they're performing? So that's the align stage. And then as we move towards the assess phase, we also need to ask our talent, what do I love doing? What energizes me every day? Because sometimes people are good at something, but later on we find out they don't like to do that. And that doesn't really create a sustainable model, because if you don't like doing something, then chances are you're not going to stay very long at it, or there's only a cap to how much you can improve. The next is, what do I want to become in my organization? So we need to ask our talents what their career aspirations are, what they want to evolve into. So maybe currently they are a sales manager. Do they want to become a sales director? Do they want to become the national or regional sales manager or sales director? Right? And last is, what is important to learn to get better at to achieve my goal? So how do I improve? How can the company help? And how can the individual improve themselves when it comes to their leadership development? So across these 3 steps of align, assess, and accelerate, we've drilled this down to 2 sub-steps per area. And this is what we're going to go through today. How do you specifically build your leadership pipeline so that you have a strong succession plan? If your managers leave, you've got people to replace. If your directors leave, you've got managers to replace. And you're not scrambling when somebody resigns or when somebody leaves your company. So we're going to talk about goal setting. We're going to talk about communication planning and launch. How do we tell people that they're part of our leadership program? Or do we just, surprise them and say, after 2 years of letting them go through training, surprise, you're part of our leadership program? So that's the second. The third one, let me push that out. Hang on. Let me see. There you go. So third one is strengths and gaps assessment. So how do we determine what are the set of strengths and development areas of our team? The next is interview and feedback. So we need to ask the questions, how are they doing, what their plans are for their organization. The next is mapping out the journey. So making sure that we have a clear plan for every single person that we've identified as a potential leader in our company. And the last is check-in and reflection. So we've prepared a 3-part checklist for each of these steps that we're going to start to go through. And again, whatever templates that you're seeing here, something that you can use and definitely apply to your organization. So the very first one is goal setting. And when it comes to goal setting, what we're really after is, number one, getting a baseline of your company's financial, customer, process, and learning goals. So usually companies would have a 3 to 5 year plan. What do you want to achieve as a business in the areas of customer, finance, process, and learning? Second is, what are your talent development initiatives? How are you running and monitoring them? So you mentioned earlier that you're in the middle. You're trying to refine certain steps. You're trying to refine your leadership model and your leadership plan. So how are your talent development initiatives being measured is something that is crucial to your success down the line. And the third is SMART. So I'll talk about SMART in a bit, but SMART is a great tool to help you plan and achieve these goals alongside your learning development plan or your leadership pipeline builder. All right. So SMART stands for specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound. So I'll give you an example. We can look at maybe goal number 2, where it says, what is your specific goal? You want to be able to improve your customer satisfaction rating. How do you measure that? So you can probably set a target that says, on a scale of 1 to 5, I want to reach level 4, with 5 being the highest, of course. And then attainable. How do I train my team? How do I develop my team for them to reach that goal? Is it managing customer service skills, or probably training them in account management skills? And realistic would be getting that satisfaction rating and being able to see, is it possible after I train them for them to really achieve that target? So if your answer is yes, it usually relates to the last one as well. How much time do I need to develop these skills? So of course, you can place 6 months, you can place 12 months. It really depends on the nuances in your industry or the nuances in your company. But it's very important to get this in check and make sure that everything is specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound. All right? And then the next piece, which for me is so crucial, a lot of organizations I see need to improve this, is launching the communication plan. When you're building leaders, it's a program that's not for everyone. So even when you have a graduate program, right, it's only for a specific group of people. Therefore, you want to make it very clear to them what the objectives of the program are, how these programs can benefit them, and what's in it for them. Is it for them to grow and stay longer in the company? Is it for them to improve their skills and develop their personal selves? So you have to ask the questions, how are you communicating changes in your learning and development? Or is it really something, I like to say, post and pray, right? Somebody sends you an email and the email goes, train your people on negotiation skills. And what typically happens is, if we don't have a plan, we will forward that to specific departments, and the departments would say, yeah, I wanna take that negotiation program, or I'll send a few people, right? So it's posting and praying, which is the complete opposite of what we want to do for a structured leadership pipeline. We want to communicate to our team. We want to launch it as a prestigious program for them to feel that I'm grateful for my company making me a part of the leadership pipeline or telling me that I am leadership material. So it's very crucial to ask that question. And of course, the third piece is, are you transparent? So the more transparent you are with your business goals, the more transparent you are with your direction, it also helps people understand how they fit into that bigger picture, what their contribution will be like, and what their value will be like. And of course, that increases engagement, that increases retention because they feel they're fully involved in your plan, right? So that's communication and planning. And if you look at the research, 91% of employees say that they are more effective if they can see how their individual goals fit into the big picture. It's 91%, guys, so it's practically everybody. And if we know this statistic, if we know this information, then it's very crucial for us to get everybody on board. In the same way that we get leadership buy-in, we also get talent buy-in. We want to make sure that they understand what it means to be a talent in your company. So whatever we're sharing with you, of course, it's a leadership pipeline. But in truth, you can apply the same methodology to identifying high potentials. You can use the same methodology to identify graduates or people that can enter your management trainee program. So the methodology is something that you can apply for many different areas as you're developing talent in your organization. All right. And then the third one is assess strengths and development gaps. So question one, check if you have the following items: updated tasks and KPIs, key performance indicators. Where are you at on this? Do you know what goals every person in your company has, what they need to achieve? Second is your competency framework. So I know there are some companies in our audience today that have already established a competency framework. So that's well and good. You can start from there and you should start from there because competencies are your foundation for building and developing talent in general. And then the third is, as you're building leaders, do you have a defined set of success profiles? Let me give you an example. One competency could be customer service. If you enter a bank and you ask a bank teller, what customer service is like for them, what do you think they'll say? They'll probably go, customer service for me is when I smile and greet the customer. Customer service for me is when I process the check transaction of my customer as they line up and submit their paperwork. So that's for a bank teller. But if you go to a branch manager, do you think that's what the branch manager will say? Probably not. They're probably going to go, for me, customer service is sitting down with a customer, asking them their financial plan, and giving them solutions that will help them build a better financial model for their future. So it's very, very different. So it's not just about identifying the competencies, but also identifying at what level do you need this competency to be displayed. All right? Second is assess your team's capability to continue business operations using these metrics. So if you've identified certain development areas, certain strengths, as you're building them, can your team continue on to deliver the business operations and the current business goals? Because learning takes time and you have to be realistic, as the SMART model mentioned. You have to understand that as you're developing your team, they are still doing their current jobs. So this must be very, very well balanced as you deploy your leadership program. The third is use competency-based assessments to allow the organization to objectively identify areas of strength and development for their talents. Remember, it is not enough for a manager to just tell somebody, I think you're so-so on customer service. I think you're really good at negotiation. I think you can improve more on innovation. So it will be very subjective. So you need to bring in a lot of methodologies for you to consider how to assess your people for their strengths and development areas. One way you can do that is through your competency framework. Another way you can do that is, this is a sample from the World Economic Forum. what are the 6 intelligences that drive smart leadership today? And this is something that we've put in the resource center, so you can check out the link for that. But take a look at these 6. One is learning agility. How fast are you at picking up information and solving problems? Second is contextual intelligence, or listening to different perspectives and then making your own view or perspective from the information that you've gathered. Third is technological intelligence. How quick are you to look at technologies and say, this is something we can use, this is something that can help us? You know, a lot of technologies have been exposed this day and age because of the crisis. So we're now struggling with having to use Google Hangouts, having to use Zoom, having to use all kinds of applications for us to work from home better. So immediately you get exposed to people who are quick to adapt, and also to people who are a bit struggling with how to work remotely, how to work from home effectively. The fourth is grit. So we know that we have to power through. We need to look for leaders that can power through and not make excuses and not just list all your problems. Grit is about bouncing back after setbacks. So you definitely want leaders who will take charge, learn from those mistakes, and just push through to be better. The next is social and cultural IQ. So of course, whatever work we're doing, we are dealing with people. We are dealing with others. We're collaborating with our teams. And no man is an island. So we definitely want leaders who are easy to collaborate with and love to work and give feedback to others. And the last is transformative. So the ability to create and drive a meaningful roadmap to motivate people to take action and align their efforts. So again, going back to your leadership pipeline, I believe that this competency is so crucial. You need people that can set a strategy and get the buy-in of everyone for that strategy. It doesn't matter if they're technically skilled. If they can't motivate people, if they can't drive a roadmap, if they can't develop a plan, it will be very hard for people to align in the organization. So again, this is just an example. You can rely on your competency framework. You can rely on different tools that allow you to assess for 2 things. And this next slide, I show you that these 2 things are potential and performance. So look at your competencies and use the 9-box methodology. So what is the 9-box methodology? It's about, number 1, checking their performance. So let's go back to, say, the sales role. Are your salespeople really effective at meeting their targets? Are your salespeople meeting with customers, going out and sending proposals, going out and qualifying their leads, right? And then check for their potential across the leadership competencies that you've identified. So if you said they need to be collaborative, they need to have a good sense of strategy, they need to have grit, you can check on that and tag each person as low, moderate, and high. So let's take this 9-box methodology as an example. You can see Arya on the upper right corner. She's got high potential. The company sees that, out of the competencies that they want to see in their leaders, they see all of that in Arya at a very high level. And when you look at her performance in her current role, you can also see that she's very effective and doing well. So she's at the upper right corner. And then you've got Sam, who is high in potential, but moderate in performance. And Arnell and Alma, who are maybe high performance, but potential is moderate. So you've noticed that we've tagged these areas and colored them green. These are the people that you can put through first in your leadership pipeline builder or your succession plan. And the reason for that is when you're talking of a leadership program, we know that it will take time, effort, money, and a lot of resources. A lot. So therefore, if you're a company of 1,000 people or even more, you can't put everyone through a leadership program or a leadership pipeline. So you have to prioritize. And the 9-box methodology is going to allow you to do that. It's going to allow you to prioritize based on potential and based on performance. And then you've got the yellow area. So you've got people that are moderate performance, moderate potential, and of course, you see more of them. These are what we call your soldiers in your army or your battalion. They're okay for now to stay where they are, and they will most likely be your second wave if you do get more resources and justify your leadership program. So they are waiting on the wings for that, but for now, they're okay to stay where they are. And of course, the red area where you find people as low potential, meaning you don't see anywhere they can move, and you also find that in their current role, they have low performance, then one of the approaches that you have to take is either to move them around to a different position or a different role where they can thrive better given their competencies, or to slowly move them out of the organization because they don't fit your entire model and structure and direction for your 3 to 5 year plan. All right. And the next piece is interview and feedback. So it's one thing to put people in boxes, but we shouldn't stop there because you're only looking at it with two lenses, which is your potential and your performance. A very important lens is sitting down with a person, asking them, what are your career aspirations? And asking them what their plans are for themselves in relation to the entire organization. And as you do your interview and feedback, again, we've got a 3-part checklist. The first is identify technology partners to help you run virtual interviews. So in this day and age where obviously face-to-face is not an option for us, we encounter a lot of organizations that are coming to TalentView and saying, how do I do this while everyone is on lockdown? How do I maximize my time so that while I'm here in this situation, I'm slowly assessing my leaders, I'm slowly getting their insights, getting their input, so that by the time we all come out of this, we're stronger and better in what we're doing, right? So that's the first. Check out the technologies that are out there that can help you scale up your leadership pipeline. The second is run engagement surveys and provide feedback on the results. So I'll give you a sample of this, how we're doing this in our own organization at TalentView in the next slide. And just lastly, to check on the third, summarize the results per group or function, but also consider creating person-centric learning plans. So very vital for you to divide it in teams to make you more efficient. So you can say that after you do the assessment, the sales team, this is what you've found as the common areas for development. And you can now address that through specific programs. The finance team, this is what you've found for them to develop their gaps in say, financial analysis or financial planning. And you can go ahead and address that. And once you're done with that second layer, you can go to the more drilled down version, which is going person by person and saying, for this particular person, we need to spend more time on financial planning. For this particular person, we need to spend more time on financial analysis. So it's up to you, depending on the resources and time that you have, to slowly scale up your program and build that leadership pipeline. So this is an example of our career aspiration and engagement form. So you notice that we just simply ask the person, have a firm grasp of how you envision your career goals, focus on what motivates and demotivates you, and think of how you see yourself progressing in the organization. And they can write on the space on the left side. And then you notice that we also ask them about certain experiences they have with the organization. Talk about your current role, talk about who you work with, and then rate it from a Likert scale of strongly disagree to strongly agree, or something to that effect of a 5-point scale, just to give a baseline for us to start with. All right. And then the next is, once you've got that assessment checked out and you already have all the data you need, it's now time to make sense of all the data. So don't just let the data sit there. Use it to take on this step, which is mapping the journey. So craft a development plan. What are the areas you want to focus on as you go along your development journey? Start the learning and development journey by using the 3 E's. I'll talk about that in the next slide. So 3 E's, a 70-20-10 model, and identify possible obstacles in achieving your goals. And again, following our SMART framework, which is making sure it's realistic for the timeline and it's all measurable. So when I talk about the 3 E's, this is an example of something we're working on with a large pharmaceutical organization. So if you notice, 3E stands for experience, exposure, and education. And we've mapped out for this particular role, so this one is for marketing, we've mapped out what areas do we want them, what skills rather, what competencies do we want them to experience, get exposed at, and get educated on. So most of the time, a lot of companies make the mistake of using online learning or using classroom training as the only way for them to develop their people. But in truth, that's only 10%. Online learning, blended learning is 10%. The bulk of the learning should come from, number one, experience. If you want them to become a sales director, expose them to sales director roles or tasks, meeting with critical clients, setting up a national sales strategy, or maybe even bringing them to conferences or working out a difficult customer plan, something like that. So experience should be the bulk of your leadership pipeline strategy. 20% would be exposure. So exposing them to probably a ride along with the current or incumbent sales director, just to see what habits they're forming, how they're trying to address certain challenges. And then again, 10% is education. So if you notice in this particular slide, we're really focused on laying down the framework for these 3 areas and making sure that we have everything covered as we teach people how to learn. So it's also that discipline, right? Teaching people how to learn. If your organization just keeps giving them online courses and they're not being exposed to certain nuances of the role, it will be very hard for them to apply what they've learned online or on classroom to what they're presently having to go through as part of your leadership funnel. All right. This is another example. So this is something that we use. So if our goal is to launch an internal program, for example, for sales, what competencies are we trying to target? Probably innovation, organization, and then what experience, exposure, and education do we want the person to go through? So for all of you who are familiar, and I'm sure you are, IDPs, right? Individual development plans. So the managers and team members work closely to fill out this document all the way up to the measure of success to make sure that we're all aligned in how we're wanting to achieve our goals and developing ourselves in the company. And the last, and for me, the most important, check and reflect on progress. So typically, this is where HR has to engage the business unit managers. Of course, HR typically is responsible for laying down that framework, laying down that plan, and making sure that everyone complies and just aligns to it as you build your leadership pipeline. But a critical area is as you're implementing this and as you're going through this entire process, you want to ask people, hey, how are you? How are you finding the learning? Is it too difficult? Is it too easy? How are you picking up on everything that's being thrown at you, whether that's experience, exposure, or education? So you want to get the feedback. And again, if you enlist your business managers, you'll be able to come up with the right adjustments for you to create a better experience for the learning journey of your team. So again, 3-part checklist. Build a culture of learning by making development conversations a part of monthly team meetings. So you don't always have to do this individually. If your business unit manager has a monthly meeting going on, it's just good to put in the agenda. It makes sense to just say, how are you, and check up on that person who's part of the leadership pipeline. The second is monitoring progress and weekly accomplishments through your company's virtual social hall. So if you're using any collaboration tools, if you're working remotely, working online, again, it's just a good reminder to check up on that and be ready to make adjustments as you see fit or as you see the improvements that are needed that are coming out. So these are the 6 things: goal setting, communication planning and launch, strengths and gaps assessment, interview and feedback, mapping the journey,
and doing a check-in and self-reflection and organization reflection as you go along. And this is something that you can, the reason why it's a circle is you do it as a cycle where down the line, your organization strategy will change. Maybe after 2 years, or maybe because of this crisis, the strategy has changed. You definitely need to pass through that entire circle again and make sure that we're getting to an alignment, an assessment, and an acceleration plan for your team. So these are the 6. We're now going to jump on a quick poll just to check how everybody's doing at this point. And again, feel free to download any of the resources. Feel free to ask some questions that we will endeavor to answer later on. So I'm leaving a poll question here. Out of the 6 stages of building your leadership pipeline, I'll give you a minute. What do you think your organization is good at? So feel free to check all that apply. All right. So I hope it wasn't that difficult of a poll. We'll see everybody's answers as a group, and we'll just take a look at that. Wow. Is this for real? You guys are like an absolute group. 100%. The things that you're good at are interview and feedback. But we need a lot of improvement on the rest. All right, let me see if I just got that right. I'm going to push that poll again because it's hard for me to believe. That's just one thing and everybody agrees on it, right? So I'll give you another 15 seconds just to click a few more if you think you're good at anything aside from interview and feedback. I'm sure, HR is always hard on themselves. I'm sure you're good at all these other things too. Be kinder to yourself. All right, so we'll see those results again and see how everything goes. There you go. All right, so we've got 50% of our respondents today who are saying check-in and reflection is something that their organization is good at. Some people said goal setting is great, strengths and gap assessment is good, as well as interview and feedback. But the very clear areas for improvement are 2 areas: communication planning and launch, and mapping the journey. So again, at least with this poll, we know that we're not alone. We know that a lot of organizations, no matter how big or how small, they're struggling in this. And I hope that you use the resources we've shared with you, the frameworks we're sharing with you today, as a way to kickstart your improvement in these particular areas. All right, so just spending the last 5 minutes talking about some technologies that can help you scale up your development initiatives. I know we've got some clients on board in this call. For those that first time are witnessing and seeing Taligent, just take a look and explore something that can help you throughout this lockdown while you all are working from home, something that you can start already to build your leadership pipeline. So I wanted to introduce to you Taligent online assessments. So remember that phase for the assess, where you want to look at strengths, you want to look at development areas. I wanted to let you know that we have all of that in digital format, in online format. And people from their homes can take it on their laptop, can take it from their mobiles, and you can assess per job role depending on the competencies you need, depending on the skills you need, and you can immediately monitor the results that are coming up as they come up, right? So if you're not using any form of assessment, or you want to bring your competencies digitally onto a platform that you can roll out right now, you can check out Taligent. And again, we've placed some resources for you. This is an example. So one of the biggest companies we work with is Coca-Cola. So Coca-Cola recognizes that most everyone, I think about 80% of their people are working from home. So what they're doing right now is they've already matched the competencies they have in their framework to the Taligent competencies. So take a look at this sample. Learning agility, we've got that covered. Emotional intelligence, we also have that. Tech savviness and curiosity matched to maybe mental power. Innovation matched to ingenuity, right? So the first thing you can do in your resources page is check out our competencies and see if there's a match to the competency frameworks that you use for your leadership and succession planning frameworks, right? So with Coca-Cola, what they're doing now is they're letting everybody do the assessment while they have the time, while they're at home, while they're in front of their computers or their mobile phones. And they're just assessing so that they can get all that data. And once this lockdown is lifted and once everyone's back to the office, they can now map out the journey, both from a team level and also from an individual standpoint. So these are just a sample set of reports that you can pick up. So when somebody takes the test for maybe 30 to 45 minutes, immediately you will get the results in seconds. So you've got a competency report. If you see the blue report on the upper left, on the yellow report, you'll see leadership growth potential. So this is a fast track way as well. So if you're checking on a fast track way to assess for leadership potential, you can use the Taligent assessment and report. We've got tests for emotional intelligence, grit, team types, or even development. So how to communicate development gaps to individuals or to team members, you can use that using the development report. Okay. And if we move on to the next, this one I really, really love for now, because we're finding that a lot of organizations we're working with are shifting their strategy and gathering the data through video. So Taligent has embedded video interviewing in our platform. Together with the competency assessment, together with the competency reports, you also have video interview. What does this mean? This is not Skype. This is not Zoom. This is not Google Hangout. You don't have to be on the other side. You simply create questions and you send a link to your team members. And from there, they can video themselves, they can record themselves, as you can see, using their phone or using their laptop, for as long as their device has a camera. They can record themselves answering these questions. And once that's ready, and once they've completed the video interview, all that goes back to you, and you can watch and stop and pause or play as you see fit. If you notice, you can also rate by competency. Customer focus, you can rate 1 star, 2 stars, all the way to 5 stars, and you can put in notes. So for those who are also in talent acquisition, if you're trying to see how can you continue recruitment during this time, this is something a lot of our customers are using. They just send out the questions, and once people answer it, they come back and they watch the video. And I guess the nice thing is that you are able to view it in your own time, and candidates are able to do it in their own time. So whether that's internal candidates or external candidates, they can just record themselves and you get it back. So this also works for panel interviews. If you want to pass on the video to a hiring manager, if you want to pass on the video to a business unit manager, all your comments go with the link. All your comments go with the video. So in other words, 5 people can have all the comments laid out there and you will be able to see everything. So it just makes for a great collaboration Kickstarter as you're considering applicants who will enter your leadership pipeline and as you're considering candidates who may enter your talent pool at this time. All right. So I want to sort of end with this quote. Many of us intuitively know that leadership affects the bottom line. Boiling down the research to its simplest terms, extraordinary leaders can double your profit. So as a business, this is always crucial for us to meet our financial goals. And because the leadership pipeline is something we prioritize, then as HR teams and as HR leaders, we too must help our organization strategize to build our leadership pipeline. So with that, I wanted to thank you. I wanted to encourage everyone, feel free to ask questions in our Q&A portion. And if there's anything that you send us, we're happy to answer that. Also want to remind you that as you're answering feedback, it's on your right side Please let us know your thoughts. Please let us know what you think. And we're going to do an e-raffle to send out the Rethink Recruitment book to those who've answered the feedback and who were selected as winners. All right. So let me just see very quickly if there's any questions that are in the room. Yeah, so right now I'm not seeing any questions. Again, you have our contact details, so don't hesitate to reach out for anything that you may think of. Please answer our survey. And with that, I want to say super thank you to everybody that's joined us today. I hope that everything we shared is something that you can use to kickstart your leadership pipeline. If you'd like to contact us and get the help of Talent View, we're more than happy to help. We're more than happy to share our experiences as well with other customers we work with across the region and across industries. So with that, thank you so much for joining us. This is my LinkedIn QR code. Feel free to add me up on LinkedIn and we can connect from there. Okay, I'll pause because I saw a question come up. How fast can I roll out a program? Okay, great question. And I'll answer that as I leave the QR code there. So how fast can you roll out the program? I would say that it's up to you and the resources that you have. So the steps, if you already know the goals of your organization, you know your direction. We're practically, ending first quarter if you're following a calendar year. So you already know that. The next thing to do is to assess. The next thing to do is to identify who among the people have the right performance metrics and have the right potential to move up to leadership roles. And from there, you want to be able to gather that data and make sense of that data. You don't want to just watch all the videos. You don't want to just look at each assessment as one. You want to be able to look at it as a whole and make sense of it and come back to your leaders and say, this is what we found. Our research shows that a lot of our salespeople need help with negotiation. A lot of our people need help with financial analysis, with customer focus. And you can now align that and slowly map your journey. From our personal experience, I've found that it can be as fast as 2 weeks. There are companies that go and just say, let's roll with it. I'll do what I can with the resources that I have. And for some organizations, it can take as long as 2 to 3 months to lay down that plan, get approval, and then roll it out. So 2 weeks to 2 months, it will really be up to you, but that would be a typical timeline. That would be a typical way of getting started. And to your point earlier of you're at a place where you want to refine, I would say gather the data. It will help you refine your program because you're not refining based on your own opinion. You are refining based on the data that you're getting. All right. So I guess there are no more questions for now. I'll push back the slide for my QR code. And again, I say thank you for joining us. If you haven't answered the feedback, please do. And with that, we hope to see you online and we hope to see you in our upcoming webinars. Thank you very much, guys. Take care. Enjoy the rest of the week.